You know, I had the same experience going on the podcast.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you had a bad time with?
I mean, I'm making so many jokes.
That's how you are, man.
That are jokes.
And didn't like it.
I don't want to do that. So I don't do things I don't want. If you said to me, hey, it makes me feel loved if you open the car door, I would do it for you. But traditionally, I'm not buying flowers, really. I'm not opening the car door. I'm usually disrespectful to their parents. I don't consider her feelings. If she comes, that's on her. But yeah, I think I'm romantic.
Okay. All right. I don't know what to say to that one. I guess chivalry is dead.
On June 20th of last year, Tom Segura launched a new podcast/dating show under the YMH Studios podcast network, and it quickly became a success, averaging around 300,000 views per episode, and they did have a lot of big-time comedians on the show, thanks to Tom Segura's connections. And although I didn't really see a lot of episodes, it was very popular with a lot of people. The premise of the show was popular because their biggest episodes were absolutely massive, and even though, yes, they were with well-known comedians, when it comes to their most intense and most awkward episode in the entire show's history, hands down it goes to the episode with Rick Glassman a few months ago, which was absolutely insane, because I would go as far as to call it an absolute masterpiece when it comes to being a perfect example of when a show doesn't go well and the host doesn't get the comedian sense of humor. So in this video, we'll see Rick Glassman doing his typical podcast comedy, doing bits, and Laura Compton absolutely missing all of the jokes, getting annoyed, and at some point towards the end of the show, they actually had a very uncomfortable moment, and the show just ended in a very weird way. So let's get started.
I assume that if we go on a date and you don't want to go on a date with me again, it's only because physically, like, you like a certain specific thing that I'm not.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with who you are.
I'm sorry, I thought I had a sneeze.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I thought I had a sneeze.
You just glitched.
I don't think so. And then,
do you look the same every day?
Mm-mm.
You change.
Yeah.
You're like a chameleon. Do you typically wear women's clothing? Do you always wear glasses? Do you switch it up with contacts?
I take them off sometimes, but I have a weird thing with my eyes that people make fun of me about.
I see.
And it's not even that I need them for near farsightedness. It's just to help my eyes.
Okay.
But no, this is my mom's, but this is all man. This is a man shirt, man pants.
Okay.
Do
you have a girlfriend?
Are you going to keep that women's clothing thing in? Do you produce that kind of stuff? Is that something that you could show me? I could see if I want to take that out.
You want to take that out?
You could send it to me, and I might want to take that out.
Okay.
Yeah, let me know.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you have a girlfriend?
Well, I knew that we were going to get into this, and I don't really get into my personal life too much, but I will say this: this is a man's cardigan. No, I'm just kidding. I've been single for a few months, and my ex contacted me within the past week, and I'm now a little confused with what that means. And
what did she say?
She said, "Could you send my stuff back?" And I think that she wants me again.
And once again, I think it's important to point out that the entire show heavily relies on comedians going on the podcast and doing the heavy lifting, telling jokes, and carrying the show, while Lauren has the most basic questions that really require no research. And so because of that, it is a little bit unfair that when it came to Rick Glassman, she completely threw all of that out the window and forgot that he was a comedian going on a comedy podcast to do comedy. For example, within the first few minutes, Rick started the show by making some jokes, doing some bits, and even though she was being nice about it and laughing along because it was the beginning of the show, it was clear that she wasn't really feeling his comedy and was taking him way too serious, because at exactly 5 minutes into the show, she actually turned it into a roast session and took a shot at Rick, which to be fair was actually really, really good and arguably set the tone for the rest of the interview, which did end up backfiring for her at the end of the show. And also, I'm not sure if Rick Glassman does this on purpose, but he actually did something very similar when he went on The Fighter and the Kid and completely steamrolled over Brendan Schaub and Brian Callen. And he basically starts off slowly and then starts ramping it up towards the middle, and then towards the end he just completely drains everyone's energy, and since they're not able to keep up, they actually become the joke. And again, it happened to The Fighter and the Kid podcast, and it happened to Lauren Compton, because at the end she was actually speechless, not knowing what to say, and just wanted to end the podcast as soon as possible. And by the way, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps out so much and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, but doing bits online where it's like, I also feel very seen. Like if, when you know I'm joking, or if I could say it's a joke and you get it and you develop that shorthand, I feel very seen. So like just doing it back, man, I'm talking.
Yes.
There was a moment where you made a joke about this, and I was pretending I was upset.
Right.
And then I didn't say I wasn't, and then whatever, it's just a joke. I'm sure people know I'm joking. But then I did another joke, and then you just either weren't listening to me, or not that you needed to laugh, but it didn't connect. And then I felt like, oh, did she think that I was serious about that other thing? So I made a point to make a joke about the cardigan being the mom's thing. Like I made a point because I didn't want to say to you, I was just joking, but I also needed you to know because I wanted to develop a shorthand with you. So like when bits miss, like we gotta fucking figure it out, or I ain't getting hard. I've never been softer than that second joke when you're like, huh? You could have pulled your shirt down and been like, I'm doing bits. See me.
Okay.
But yeah, I guess also, I like tall. I like a tall girl. Not necessary, but.
And funny enough, I was going to try and defend Lauren by arguing that because she's not a comic, a comedian, it's not her responsibility to, exchange and go back and forth with someone like Rick Glassman. However, I was doing some good old research online on Google, and it does appear like she has done stand-up comedy in the past and has some sets on YouTube. I didn't check them out. And also her show is on the YMH Studios YouTube channel, which is a comedy podcast network. Not to mention that she has been doing the show for a while and has done it with many, many other comedians. So once again, the fact that she was actually taking him seriously is absolutely insane, especially when at some point he was actually breaking it down and explaining to her that he was only doing bits and it was all comedy. Now, there is a chance, of course, that Rick Glassman was just kidding when talking about what type of girls he was into, or maybe he was serious. Regardless, the point is that he was explaining how his way of flirting or his way of meeting new people was by doing bits and joking around, and how his biggest turnoff is when another girl, another woman doesn't get his comedy or get the bits. And funny enough, he actually used her as an example of someone not getting his jokes and his bits and how that was a turnoff. And her reaction was really weird because it was almost as if she was laughing at him for saying the most insane and the most wild thing ever. And as soon as that happened, you can tell Rick Glassman stopped taking the show seriously and just started doing all bits and jokes, which were all going over Lawrence's head, and she wasn't liking that. At that point of the show, that's when it started going south very, very quick.
Well, I can honestly say I've never done a bit while having sex, but I have put on accents in different countries when I'm...
Do you have any funny Asian accents I could hear?
No, not Asian.
Because when I'm eating a girl and she's doing an Asian accent, I want to eat her out again 30 minutes later.
Yeah. No Asian. I've done English, done a little Spanish, done Italian, and it depends.
I should introduce you to my mother.
You said she wasn't Italian.
Unrelated.
Okay.
My mom, I'm saying she's unrelated. Maybe we're not connecting all the bits, but we're fun. We're having fun.
That's all right.
You're not into puns.
I do like puns.
Prove it.
Well, give me a good one.
Give me a good one. Yeah. You ain't a pun chick. Believe me.
Okay, I do believe you.
Here's by the way where I would know not to go in for a first kiss.
Well,
but I'd ask.
I mean, I feel like I'm so nice, I would still give you the first kiss.
See, and that's not nice. That's people pleasing.
I would, but I had probably had too much alcohol. And when I drink a lot, I get very mean.
Dude, that's why do girls?
I'm a dick. Like, and it's not good. And I'm not proud of it. And I have said things that I really regret. And I've done things that I really regret when I am drunk. And I have learned about myself that I need to dial it fucking back if I really like someone. But it's hard when I like to also let myself go, you know?
You should do some of these podcasts with that theme and just get plastered for it. And then call it, this episode is I'm a bitch.
Yeah.
And then you could watch, because I've learned so much from editing myself and watching myself on the podcast, and to see yourself in it, it might like.
I would lose my entire audience.
You think so?
I am not a nice person.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm mean. Don't you know what mean is? I'm mean. Mean.
Yeah.
And once again, at that point of the episode, it was very clear that she wasn't feeling his comedy at all. And she was just trying to get through the last questions as quickly as possible. And instead of feeling like a comedy podcast, it felt like watching someone's first day as a shitty therapist. And also, I know some people will argue that because it happened on a podcast, that it's fake, that they're both acting, and it's all a bit. However, when it comes to this episode, that was definitely not the case, because that would be giving them way too much credit. And instead, what actually happened, in my opinion, was that Lauren Compton wasn't really prepared to talk to someone like Rick Glassman. And that podcast episode was a perfect example of what happens when someone does a podcast and it doesn't go well. And also, I was thinking that maybe the reason why the episode didn't go so well was because Rick Glassman wasn't really doing the whole shtick of trying to flirt with her and making jokes about how hot she was. And instead, he was actually trying to do comedy and tell jokes, and she wasn't really interested in that at all.
For my dessert question, what is the sweetest thing that you have ever done for a significant other or partner?
Man, that's so contextualized, right? I bought my ex a house.
You did?
No. Of course not. The sweetest thing? What's the sweetest thing?
Do you consider yourself romantic?
Yeah, like I feel like I have an analogy for you. I came up stand up in clubs. If we're on a date and we're walking to my car and I'm driving and I'm on the if we're coming from the driver's side, I'm not going to go around to open your door.
Oh, why?
Because could you not get it?
What?
Could you get it? Could you open your door?
I mean, I could.
Perfect. But I am going to be very thoughtful with other things, like things that are practical.
Whoa. Okay, so if I can do something for myself, then you don't feel you need to do it.
I feel that by me opening the door for you, I'm being sincere when I say this, it feels manipulative. It feels like I'm only doing this to show you, look at how good of a guy I am. I'm getting the door for you. But it feels silly to me. But traditionally, I'm not buying flowers, really. I'm not opening the car door. I'm usually disrespectful to their parents. I don't consider her feelings. If she, that's on her. But yeah, I think I'm romantic.
Okay. All right. I don't know what to say to that one. I guess chivalry is dead.
No, chivalry has been redefined.
Oh.
Let me give you an example.
Please do.
She's at home and she burnt her hand on a thing.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what I'm doing, I'm going to order some burn cream to Postmates to get to her right away.
Mm-hmm.
She had a rough day at work. By the time she gets home, I'm going to have her favorite treat delivered. If I'm with her and she's somewhere out and I'm maybe going to go drive there or Uber there to meet her so I could drive back with her. Like,
so if she's having a problem, you're going to help her fix it.
Yeah, that's actually, I didn't recognize that pattern. That's a great observation. I want to be of service.
And by the way, what makes this even funnier is how simple and silly the whole bit was, because at that point of the podcast, he wasn't really trying to troll her anymore, and he was simply telling a very basic joke. I mean, he's on a comedy podcast, on a comedy dating podcast, talking to a girl that he's supposed to be on a date with, and then he starts talking about how he doesn't believe in opening car doors for people that he's dating, how he is mean to their families, to their parents, and then how his way of showing kindness is to simply spend money and buy them things, order them things online. But the way she reacted, it was almost like she couldn't believe that a man like that actually existed out there. Now, this next thing is silly, but some people did point out that at the end of the podcast, she didn't mention that she wanted to have a second date, which I guess she does with every other guest. And if that is true, then, that is proof that she didn't have a good time with Rick Glassman. And when it comes to Rick, he also talked about it on his own podcast. So once again, there is no chance that this whole thing was planned or faked. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of the show First Dates, I have seen a few episodes, and also I've seen clips of the Mark Norman episode and the one with Tom Segura. And there are funny moments here and there. However, if I'm being real, I don't see how a show like that could continue to go on for a long time and stay fresh and relevant for a while, because I don't know how much input Tom Segura has when it comes to the creative process of the show. Because if the entire purpose of YMH Studios is to simply provide the equipment and the YouTube channel for a show to be hosted on, I don't know if that's the best value, because, when a show starts to suffer and the views drop, Tom Segura could simply, cut you off and then move on with his life. And even though Tom Segura does have access to most comedians that can keep going on the show and keep it alive, I don't know if that's my favorite format. And now looking back, I think that type of show is exactly what Grandpappy Bill was pitching to Haley Welch, the Hawk Tuah girl, when she was on the show, which we covered a few weeks ago. However, when it comes to Rick Glassman, I don't think he's going back on that show for a second time. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. Leave a like and subscribe to support the channel. Dislike if you didn't like the video. But that is all we have for today. See ya.